Michelle, can you hear us? Join? Let's see. Michelle, can you hear us? I can hear you well. Yeah, we're all good. All good. So,
Hi, Michelle. It's Eric.
Hi, it's Mike.
how was Cardiff and Neil Warnock? Was it all good? Anything exciting?
It's the room where they're going to come out a bit echoey.
Yeah. So basically, this tool here on Zencaster, it records both our audio locally and yours locally, and then it merges them together. So yeah, so you should get good quality audio in the final piece. So how bad is it for you? Is it not good for you?
Mike, 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, Michelle. Oops, sorry. That's two of us together. Hi, Michelle. Good morning. 1, 2, 3. Eric.
So we got Nathan, Mike, and Eric, and yourself, and
Is Corey going to join?
I don't know. Is Corey going to join?
Yeah, we've got to get him into.
He likes his football. He likes
He's like
season
his,
ticket holder. New season ticket holder at Arsenal. He's just come over from Australia, so
We're going to have 3 different accents in the room.
we'll have an international. So let's do the new football season. Let's obviously we'll go through the season just kicked off. It's interesting new season from a technology point of view with VAR. We've seen that in the Premier League, and it's already created some interesting discussion. And then we'll just go through those questions, the topics for discussion. We'll just try and work our way down those. And see where it takes us. We'll probably try and aim to do 25 to 30 minutes on this one. I think it's probably about right. And then we'll finish this one. We've done the managed services one, so don't worry too much about that. We've done. We did a previous one with a guy, a chap from O2, so we've just done that one. And then after that, we've got a little bit later Scott from the NFL. Coming in,
Jacksonville Jags.
Yeah, from Jacksonville Jags to talk around just the commercial side of the NFL and that team and how it differs from doing that job, that role at a Premier League club. So. Good. All 5 of us, to be honest, we can all chip in, and we've all got an opinion on football, like everybody does. Yeah. So if you, so we've got Corey. Let me just actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let me just send you an email with our names, job titles.
On the Australian one, that should be pretty easy to.
It's got a little bit more of a twang than the others.
Did you have a coffee here? Is that any good?
Yeah, actually, it was quite nice.
Just the people here that use this.
Yeah.
I'm quite picky.
We're in a kind of small type of WeWork near Baker Street, Michelle, and it's a nice facility let down by
customer service.
Not the best customer service.
Non-existent.
Yes, there was also that they were disappointed we were here.
Yeah.
Open to suggestions.
Right, let me just send you this. And you'll have everybody's role. its way to you. Let me know when you get that. Yeah, should appear. Just got our names, job titles. Okay, lovely. Cool. So I think we are ready to go. So we're recording on the Zencaster, so we'll get that. I'll also just I'll just record it locally here as well. So we've got a bit of a backup. Okay, we're ready to go. Hey Michelle, how are you?
It's been good the first few weeks I was over here, but reverted to type the last week.
Yes, all good, thank you. Although taking some abuse from the previous mentioned Aussie as a result of cricket scores at the moment. So good to be on the topic of football.
I'm very good, Michelle. Good morning.
Yeah, it's Mike. I think actually the question's an interesting one from almost a different perspective. It's less about what VAR's direct impact is on the club technology infrastructure, which is surprisingly lightweight. I know there was a lot of concern from clubs when goal line technology came in in the higher leagues as to what that would do for their connectivity and wider pieces. It's relatively light in terms of using a lot of the existing broadcast infrastructure you may have to push things back in and out. It's actually the impact of from the consumer point of view that we've seen a little bit more of, even in this first weekend. Some of the trials last season and FA Cup games was about people wanting to know what is going on, because of course you're still under the wrap of the broadcast deals in terms of what you can show in the stadium. So yes, your big screen may have a big holding message up saying, VAR review in progress. Of course, to the fan in the stadium rather than the fan at home, you don't get to see what that actually is, or what angles they're looking at, or why they're reviewing it, or outside of a simple penalty, yes or no, kind of thing. So what we saw was a lot of spikes in and around VAR incidents where consumers are looking to their phone to look at their broadcast feed, or maybe pop Sky Go or BT Sports apps on to try and watch the broadcast feed in the stadium because they can't get it from the stadium itself. So it comes back to that classic connectivity challenge for a fan a little bit. That's been an interesting, I guess, side impact that people wouldn't necessarily have looked at.
It's going to accelerate the need for connectivity in the ball all around the Premier League.
There was a really interesting example in the Super Cup, right, where in the Super Cup, there was other feeds from different broadcasters that were able to show that it wasn't a penalty in the Liverpool Chelsea game. That wasn't available to VAR, which was really interesting. So it's an interesting one that the guys in VAR don't actually even have the full set of feeds available to them to make those decisions, which was kind of interesting. I didn't really.
Yeah, but I guess where do you limit it? If you take all the camera feeds in the stadium, you take your classic broadcast, have probably got 12 plus roaming from there. But then the club will have their own analyst cameras. The away cameras will come in and set up. There'll be other analytics and cameras. There'll be goal line technology cameras, etc. Now, how many angles do you look at it for? So one of the challenges VAR has had in terms of its reviews from week one, certainly Guardiola seems to have gone from I'm a big fan of it to actually that ruined our game. That was the amount of time it takes per VAR check.
But I was just going to say on the positive, it was quick compared to looking at City A games where the referee goes to the sideline, has the hood on or whatever, looks at the time, it takes 3-4 minutes. I was impressed in matches this last weekend that it seemed to be about less than a minute to make a decision. But again,
I think they've said that, yeah. They've definitely said that they're only going to try and use it to rule out obvious mistakes, to try and kind of speed that process up. But, I guess the argument against it is, does it kill the emotion of the game? The most emotional part of the game is where you celebrate the goal.
Well, I've got that noted down. I watched the Arsenal game on Sunday, being an Arsenal fan, and I didn't celebrate Aubameyang's goal because I thought, hang on, he's offside.
Yeah.
And then it took, about 15, 20 seconds to go, no, that's actually a goal. And you lose that moment in the game where you celebrate.
Yeah. Well, you saw, I think, for the West Ham Man City game, 3 of Man City's goals went through a VAR check, and for one of them, the players had already regrouped back on the halfway line, waiting for a restart.
Yeah.
For sort of a minute, and then sort of went, "Yay, goal! Right, let's keep going." And there's a big difference between being 4 or 5-0 up, as they were at that time, and that really being kind of inconsequential, or that being an 89th minute winner, and the swing that could be between actually we've just won 2-1. You think particularly to go through sort of the last echelons of the season rather than the start where we are now. That point could be the difference between promotion, relegation, playoff place, not playoff place, Europa League, not Europa League, etc. on the way through. You celebrate that goal, only for 4 minutes later that's been taken away, and then you're into Spurs, Man City territory in the Champions League quarter-final last year. Where it's like, we've just completed this unbelievable comeback. No, actually, no, we haven't. And I can only imagine how bizarre that would have been as an experience in the stadium to see that.
And the other side of that is how many times travelling for Arsenal was there clearly a penalty and it wasn't called. And you're suffering from a lack of clarity in the call. So where do they win? Where is the balance?
So Michelle, with you, obviously you're working for Sky. What's it added to kind of the Sky Sports kind of coverage of the game? Does it add something, or is it something which you feel could, is there are good and bad points to it? What's your view?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think football is a strong enough product to withstand a little bit of that. I guess it takes away a little bit of the debate to an extent, which I guess your halftime pundits gives you a little bit less to talk about when you haven't got I thought it was a penalty, no, I thought it wasn't type debate to have on the way through. I think that the interesting thing about VAR really is they haven't kind of gone down the cricket type model, which is almost your hybrid between the two, as in. At the moment, this is referee-led, and the referee is reviewing, or the VAR is reviewing on behalf of the referee, or vice versa. So they're referring only to each other. Whereas in cricket, if you look at test matches per 80 overs, each side getting 2 reviews, and then it's actually, well, did you, the players, feel strongly enough that was a terrible decision to then ask for it to be reviewed? And of course, you have the success mechanisms or the failure mechanisms. So if you were right, you keep your 2 reviews, and you keep going. If you're wrong, you lose a review and you're down to 1. And that keeps a bit of a blend between the flow of the game and the challenging of the officiating, rather than, I guess, the danger, as we're seeing it at the moment as it gets rolled out, is more things are being reviewed than not. And even if that is a quick check in the background, that's then disrupting the referee or the flow or the broadcaster or the commentator having to say, oh, actually, yeah, we just got notification that a VAR check's over. People say, well, what was it even for? Or what's going on? So it's an interesting one to go straight away purely to the officials for them to review everything themselves, as opposed to go player-led and say, what's the things we really care about and what are the things we're really upset about?
Is there an optimal kind of solution, do you think, for the fan in the stadium to give them a better experience?
Well,
so should they have the audio? Should they have access to the
we'll
audio?
get to a point where there's a voting system when everyone's connected.
That's it.
I mean, if you think about what they do in Formula E, they actually have that fan kind of engagement where, through the app, you can actually vote for some of the drivers to have additional power or boost or something. So that's maybe.
I think that's
let's not make Raheem Sterling any quicker.
Well, then on the opposite side of that, there was the tweet. Was it Hull City? The tweet that came out about the guy being asked not to send text messages.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Right, when betting and the numbers around betting get involved, and then it becomes.
Well, do we think they should have access to the audio, the conversation between the referee?
Well, the audio is almost useless if you don't have the visual.
In Australia, we've had this for about 7 years in our Aussie rules professional competition, where we have a goal review system where every goal is checked before it goes back to the start by someone up in a box. The issue we've had is that we get shown replays in the ground and then we hear the audio of it, but the technology isn't good enough to support it. So in our game, balls can be kicked and then if they're touched by the opposition before they go through, it doesn't count as a point. But our broadcasters have better access to cameras than the actual umpire up in the box does. So we're actually finding that there's more mistakes being made because of the system that's been introduced. And then the fan can see them on the broadcast and see that there's been a mistake, which then creates all this uncertainty and tension around it. So we're better off not having the system in place.
And it comes back to the same challenge that football was. It's amateur hour from Nathan Bethell just over there. It comes back to the same sort of challenge as footballers always have from a broadcast perspective, which is around safety and security and inciting challenges for in-stadium behaviours by showing an incident where a red card has been given and it's clearly not a red card, or a red card has been given and it clearly was, and the perception of that then influences the behaviour of fans. I guess the challenge for VAR is, unlike kind of cricket, where you have Hawkeye and ball tracking, which then could say, yes, that empirically was or was not hitting the stumps. You're still relying on a subjective view of the referee in the VAR seat to say, no, that wasn't a clear and obvious error. I think it was Willian at Chelsea in the FA Cup last year who, let's not besmirch his name, went down softly. I think it's a good, easy term for that.
Just done that.
And it could have been worse, to be fair. Went down softly, the penalty was awarded, and the opposition, I can't remember who it was, going off at the referee about it, referred to VAR, and VAR's decision was, well, from the angle the referee is standing at, that does look like a penalty, and therefore it's not a clear and obvious mistake. So even though most people look at that, and 80% of the fans would go, clearly not a penalty, need to overturn that decision, the referee hadn't made a clear and obvious error. And so because you've still got that subjective nature, showing it to the fans in the stadium creates the same challenge as just showing them the live broadcast feeds or live replays. And I guess that's the challenge we've got to get over. Because you say, give them the audio, they say, yeah, I'm looking at this angle now, rolling it through. I mean, that's a pretty boring fan experience unless they know what they're rolling through or which angle they're looking at. So
you can hear it in the cricket though when they review caught behind or like Snicko, for example. The audio does come over the speaker.
Yeah, but that comes alongside an image.
You've got the image.
So you've got the image, if you took the image away, the sound would be pretty inconsequential.
But it's inevitable that it will evolve and technology will evolve with it. And Michelle, I'm thinking Sky has the technology where some of the commentators at halftime can almost be put onto the pitch, and you can move. You hold the moment in the game, but you move around in 360 degrees and kind of see all angles. And I can't in myself imagine how that comes in, but I can see it converging with. I mean, I don't want to think about a referee or an umpire wearing goggles or going to get yard. But there will be some mix of that.
That was a mistake, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't because it was his arm.
His arm.
But I think what Gary Lineker said about that match that was interesting is that it's really hard to know exactly when the ball is released from the foot. So at the moment that, you can do a line judge of Raheem was slightly offside, but it all depends on when that ball is left, and that's very hard to kind of to know with that real level of science. And
so we'll get to a point where there's trackers in the balls, there's impact in the balls, and the LED will just go red all around the sidelines of the pitch because there'll be robots instead of line judges that'll be measuring where players are. I can see that happening. I just had an image of that in my mind while you were describing that. Yeah. So I think, back to my earlier point, I think technology is inevitably going to make it more accurate, but the teething is, like you said, Michelle, figuring out how to not kill the experience.
But
and how it's shared.
The important thing to consider is, does the technology actually improve the product? So would fans rather have the debate on a Monday morning and say a goal was offside but it got through and it impacted the result, or are they willing to put up with the issues that come with VAR? Knowing that every decision is going to be correct, but it does ruin the experience a little bit.
And I guess the other question is, is it the fan experience that will ultimately make that decision, or will it be money? Because is it included in the Champions League that some club misses out on because of a missed call, that they make the claim, I'm out of this much money because there was a wrong decision against us, so we fix this to be precise. I wonder how that will.
Yeah, and at the moment, as Mike said, it's still humans making decisions with the aid of technology.
Yeah.
Like we had the Fabregas example from the Monaco game last week where it was just a clipping of heels running through on goal, and the opposition player went over in the box, and that's a pre-match suspension for him now. Not conduct,
right.
Nothing. It was an accident. Yes, you could say it was a penalty. It definitely wasn't a sending off, and it definitely wasn't worth a 3 match suspension.
And as you say, that's where the subjective piece still is. You think of the Man United penalty away at PSG in the Champions League last season for the handball that nobody appealed for.
Yeah.
And that's where you come back to the players leading it rather than the referees leading it, because Man United had set themselves for the corner, going, decent shot, right, great, let's pile forwards, only for the referee to say, hold on, don't take that corner. I'm being told there might be a penalty here, and you can understand then, to say the emotion side where PSG go, hang on, what do you mean a penalty? And is that a natural position, or what the hell is a natural position? I don't think anyone knows what bloody hell a natural position is for where your arm is in a football match and what that means, because it's changed so many times over the last sort of decade. So what does that do for the fan experience and the confusion of what goes on around it? Yeah, I think up and down as a collective week. It's one of the oddities of being a football fan myself and being an Arsenal season ticket holder, as is Corey. I used to describe it that we get more than one bite of the cherry to win at the weekend because you're working across so many clubs. But as was the case, if you look at Leeds United and Nottingham Forest, who are both our clients, they were playing each other at the weekend. So actually, neither of them were particularly happy with the draw, but actually, from our point of view, it makes an easier Monday morning conversation to speak to both of them without any of them having lost, and Leeds maintain their unbeaten start, and Nottingham Forest get a good away point on the road. So it is always fascinating looking at the results as they come in and the conversations that will likely spin out of them, or people's happiness ratings as they go through. I think it's still such a funny industry for being so result orientated, which is always going to be the nature of the beast. But people going, actually, we've not started this as well, we're going to delay that marketing campaign, or actually we're going to wait and see whether we get through in the Carabao Cup on Wednesday night before we go into this, and just the ups and downs that those sort of cup fixtures can create. Again, thinking of Forest, had Fleetwood at home in the Carabao Cup in the week, and I don't think the attendance was overtly strong for a very early season game, middle of the summer holidays, first round of a cup competition, not the Premier Cup competition in terms of the FA Cup, etc. But then, of course, have been drawn Derby County as their biggest rivals in the next round, also at home. And the momentum swing between the happiness of people going into the Fleetwood game versus the moment after the draw is so significant, because it's something the fans are passionate about. When the fans are passionate, you've got an opportunity to deliver product. So it is always fascinating looking from the sidelines and thinking how people are going to be feeling on a Monday morning after the weekend, and try and call the winners first, and let the losers have an afternoon to reflect before we get into them. Yeah.
It's a tough part.
No bias, Nathan.
No bias. Obviously, from my accent, you can tell I'm a big Liverpool fan, and so I.
Being from Essex and all. Natural.
Actually, weirdly, I was not too far away from where we're in central London at the moment, and born not too far. My dad used to be a chief police officer in Chelsea back in the 70s and 80s, and so he took me to my first game, which was a Liverpool Chelsea game.
You just picked the wrong side of the coin.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Is that when the cars were parked around?
That's right, yeah, the cars used to get parked around, so I think for Liverpool, they need to focus on trying to win the Premier League this year, so I would imagine that's where they're focused. But come on, it's so hard to look past Man City, unfortunately. They will, I've got a feeling they'll do it again. I think they'll be almost unstoppable this year.
I say I can't look much beyond City. I think I was particularly annoyed with a fantasy football hat on Saturday when I found out that Aguero and Bernardo Silva weren't in the starting lineup or in my starting 11. But it just goes to show their strength in depth. We were watching that game at the weekend against West Ham, and actually the first half was pretty even, and the front half of the second half was relatively even. But then as West Ham tired and changed up to their bench, which is clearly not as strong as City's, was City's tired, they swapped up and brought on Premier League Golden Boot winners and going knocking goals 4 and 5 kind of thing. I think that's the challenge that Liverpool have, is their starting 11 man for man against Man City. You'd have a hell of a job picking a combined 11, but the bench should pick probably 70% of City's, and that's where it will come in. Christmas time and those dip periods where you have a huge run of games. It's hard to look past City's squad as a piece.
Well, I think I'd have to agree with Jose Mourinho. I said that Man City's bench can beat anyone in the Premier League. I'd echo what Mike said. If you have that kind of depth and that kind of money, what are you going to do?
Yeah, Man City, I think they'll win it quite comfortably, to be honest.
Well,
I'd expect Liverpool to regress compared to what they did last season.
That's unbelievable.
Was that?
We're European champions.
Yeah, but that's almost why you have the dip.
Yeah.
It's
two bitter Arsenal fans.
Well, it does echo what's going on in Serie A in Italy. Is the championship's almost decided by the transfer market? So third and fourth place it's the interesting race to get into Champions League.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. I was going to say, you've got Man City and Liverpool, where you fancy will be battling for 1 and 2. Then you've got that mini league of sort of Tottenham, Chelsea, Man United, Arsenal, potentially Wolves after their performance last season, battling for Champions League. Then you've got your Leicester, West Ham, Wolves, Watfords of last season, kind of in that next 4 or 5 going, we want to be in the Europa League. Then you've got that group being, we want to chase their tails. So you've got the group who don't want to go down. So actually there's less excitement at the top of the table. But what has evolved in the Premier League, certainly over the last 10, 15 years, is it used to be all about the title. So there'd be 3 or 4 teams competing for it, and there'd be 5 or 6 teams competing to avoid relegation. And that mid-tier meant you get a really average 9th played 11th on a Tuesday night, and it meant absolutely nothing to anyone. Whereas at the moment, because of those sort of 4 mini sub-leagues and the 2 fighting for the title, everyone's got something to play for all of the time. I think we saw a lot of that last season, with people nicking points off each other, people losing games they ought not to, and on paper kind of thing, because they've actually got more competition later into the season. And for a bitter Arsenal fans' point of view, that's only hurt us at the end of the season in that race for 4th. We just capitulated and started losing home games against people like Crystal Palace, who ordinarily shouldn't score a few goals at Emirates and should be put away, and we then end up in the top 4. But their motivation to keep themselves out of trouble and above that line becomes so high that they come almost hungry for it than you do.
I wonder when we'll ever see another Leicester City.
Michelle, who's your dark horses? Who's your tip to
That's a fascinating case study in player relations and media relations, I think, because after Man United's loss to Everton last year at Goodison Park, Solskjaer's conference was broadly saying there's a lot of players here who don't deserve this shirt and I'm going to have a big clear out. And actually all he did was sell his top goal scorer. That was the only player who left out of that sort of first team squad. So a lot of speculation about your Pogba's and some of the other players and where they might end up. But actually he's got broadly the same squad he had last year, plus a little bit of youth. So it'd be interesting to see what that dynamic shakes up and whether they can keep that unity together. Because they started last season in not dissimilar vein. Started sweeping away a couple of teams. They won a couple of games 4-0. They were top of the league, I think, at the end of August going into September. And it was by October, the egos, the characters, the dressing room challenges had come back to the fore. And have you done enough by signing a couple of new players and getting rid of one to really alter that dynamic? That's always the Manchester United one to watch.
I'm not sure it is because it's kind of just mimics the Champions League, right? I mean, same organizers, and they're pretty good at hosting events. I remember when I was with Roma at Stadio Olimpico when Champions League matches came around. They have a very efficient crew at UEFA who come in and just take over for 48 hours. And I don't see it as a big challenge because it's distributed the way it is.
I think the fan engagement around the matches is the key part of it, getting consistency with that. So having the festivals outside the stadiums and making sure that the fan experience is consistent, it's safe. That's probably the most difficult part of it, and getting all the stakeholders online from all the different associations. But the actual matches themselves, I agree, it'll be similar to what they've been through in the past.
Yeah, I think it's so. We just had Cricket World Cup over here in the UK. Obviously, over the summer. Summer was a very successful event, not only on the field, but
he didn't win.
We didn't manage to tie the World Cup final, but we got the trophy either way. Where we saw those consistent fan activations and engaging different communities and where they played the games and what they did with that. I think it's, as you say, it's less the fan experience for me. It's more the digital experience. Because we've talked on previous podcasts about the challenges of some stadiums having fantastic connectivity and others having none, and etc. So you can brand it as much as you like. You can put up as many temporary hoardings outside and stick a different signage on the LEDs and items like that to make it a UEFA Euro 2020 event in a particular place. But can you still allow a fan who goes to one, in France versus England versus Germany, etc., across the distributed model, to be able to do their Instagram moments, to be able to share their experience and make sure that the buzz collectively is in place. Sort of one of the ways in which the ECB looked to deal with that for the Cricket World Cup was to do a central Wi-Fi deal and push that out to the major venues to ensure everyone had connectivity. I think that's the kind of piece that falls down when you're in this disaggregated model, because whilst you do have one organising body, the landscape is very different when you're playing across different countries and different investment levels, different size stadia. Compared to a relatively consistent sort of size and shape to a cricket ground.
Cheers,
Thank
Michelle.
you.
That was perfect.
Very much bang on.
That was 30, about 30
What?
minutes, so perfect. I will just press stop recording here. I might lose you, but let's. 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 I might lose you.